Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexi. We are just waiting for a couple more people to join. I see that there's quite a few people joining into the meeting at the moment. So we will give it until 3:05 or 2:05, depending on which part of the world you're in, and we'll get started shortly. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to give it one more minute, guys, and then we'll get started. Good afternoon, good morning to everyone out here on this call. Thank you for making the time to join us for this episode of showing you the new UI of ZAP Data Hub. Today, my name is Alexi Anolatos, and today I've got with me a colleague of mine, David Ramirez. And together we will be doing this demonstration today. We will be showing you what's new in version 10 of ZAP Data Hub. So just a couple of housekeeping rules. We will have a Q&A at the end of the webinar. So there is a question section. If you have a look, you can post your questions, and then when we get into the Q&A, we will then answer those questions. So I'm going to just share my screen. And David, if you can just tell me if you can see my screen. David, can you see my screen? No, I think David's having some technical issues with his audio, but I'm sure everyone can see my screen. All right, guys, thank you so much. And essentially, if I can just set the scene here, we are showing you the new user interface that has been launched with version 10. Now, for some of you that are already cloud-based customers, this won't be new to you because as we've already, as us being a cloud-first company, we always will do a release in the cloud first before we make it available on to the on-premise customers. Now, everything, if you want to follow through with some documentation that we're going to be covering today, if you go to a site called docs.zapbi.com and you select using Data Hub, this is the document that we're going to be covering today as we take you through these new features. All right. So from here, I'm going to just move that to the side of my screen here. And we're going to just go through some of the goals that were set out when we created this new UI. First of all was to improve the overall look and feel. We removed the ribbon and to save some real estate and also reduce the auto sizing. The initial focus was really around the reporting UI. And then we replaced some legacy components to improve the overall app performance when navigating through. So the first thing that we'll do is you'll actually see that now I don't really have a black ribbon on the top and with a whole bunch of menus. The first thing that you'll see is the Resource Explorer now is on the side here. So if I click on the three lines, I have the Resource Explorer here. So I can then from there expand and actually go into, for example, into my reports. And for example, if I want to go and actually open up a particular dashboard, I just have to double click and it will open up that dashboard. So for example, I am opening up the CFO dashboard. So what we've also done as the user experience goes is we've actually combined the consumer view and the designer view into one view. Now, when you're accessing this from a tablet, you will by default go to the designer view. But when you're accessing this from from your PC, for example, this will only show you in this particular view. Now, some of you might still enjoy the the consumer view of navigating and being able to browse and do certain things. You can do that if you go and click on the three dots next to whichever area you want to do. For example, so if I go into I'll just take my ERP system, and if I go to Get Link and I say Open, this will open this up in a separate tab, which is the same view as you are still used to when it comes to the consumer view. So we'll just give that a second to open up. And from there you can navigate through to your desired dashboard. Okay, so moving back, we've got the next part of this is where we can actually do a search in, for example. So I'm going to look at my ERP, for example, and I'm going to right click, and I've got now all these different different menus that you actually saw, for example, on the top. It's now when you right click on it, you've got a lot of this. So for example, if I want to go and say cut, copy, if I want to export this, you've got all those functionalities, same as what you're actually used to in the designer view in the previous version. These are now all being made available over here. So we've got some new, like for example, if I go and say to new resource, and I've got the model, I can create analytics, and then I can still go a little bit further in where I can start creating like my comparison event, things like that. So all those functions are still here. What we have done as well is, for example, let me just do that again. Where in the previous version, we had an import and we had an upload function. This is being combined now into the import function. So if you want to import a picture or you want to actually import an export file, you could just use the import function, and that'll be available. So I'm going to open up a couple of screens here, for example. So some of the things that you quite used to. So I'm going to double click on that and open up that particular dashboard. I'll open up a couple of others. So for example, let's do accounts payable. And we were obviously used to the where you could close everything except for one tab. If you right click on it, if you right click on that tab now, you've got that functionality there where you can either close all, close that particular screen, or close the other tabs, for example, which will only leave this particular screen open. So that functionality is still there. We also have another function where we can now show in the Resource Explorer, and immediately what we'll do is it'll actually show me where that report actually lies within the Resource Explorer. So that's a new function that's available. Now let's have a look at the search in function. Now, very big part of this new UI is where we've made available like a search engine. So if I go and click on the three dots and I can say, for example, search in, it will immediately bring up that particular folder. As you can see, I can now start choosing as to what I want to search in here, but we'll actually say I want to look anything that says statement in it. And I'll just give that a second. And as you can see now, it actually brings up those reports, for example. So I can either look at the statement folder, I can look at a statement, income statement dashboard, a balance sheet, or my profit and loss statement. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to click on this little icon over here, and that's going to open up the dashboard for me to actually view that particular dashboard. If I click up again at the search, if I click on the actual report, this will actually open up that particular report in the Resource Explorer for me. So we'll just give that a second to refresh. And as you can see now, it's actually brought up that particular report in the Resource Explorer. So that's how we use the search in function. Let's have a look at a couple of other things that we can do with the search function. So I'm going to just close these. It says close all. And I'm going to just click on the X there so we can just clear that search. Now, if I right click on that, we've got other ways of searching for things. So we've got an in, we've got a tag, and we've got a type. So we've done the in already. So we've looked at in a folder. What we want to do is we want to maybe do a tag. So if I just type in tag colon and I just wait for it, it'll actually bring up all the different tags. So for example, I want to see, I'm going to do a search for something in the tag of, for example, sales. And now I want to actually look at anything that has the word sales in that particular pipeline. And I'll just give it a second to do its search. And as you can see now, this has now brought up everything, all these pipelines that actually has the search in the name of that, in that particular pipeline. So that's one of the things in the search. Now let's have a look at type. So I'm going to just clear my search here. And I'm going to just click on type. And we just wait for it to bring up the types. And I can say, for example, I want to look up a specific model. So maybe I can say, look it up a model, and we'll just give it a second to search. I'll call this one, for example, let's say ZAP. And as you can see, it's actually picked up my one model, which is called the ZAP auditing module. All right, so we're going to have a look at maybe something, for example, in this particular model. Now, one of the other changes that have happened, I'm going to just open this model, for example, is we have an extra little icon here called the connection icon. Now, one of the things that we have had before was you needed to, especially when you needed to try and create a connection to Power BI, we would have to go into the roles, for example, get the role username and password, and then we'd need to go to the model server and actually get the server details. As you can see, this is now available from the model where I've got the server name, I've got the warehouse name, and then I can obviously copy the username and copy the password. So this is really makes it quite easy now to be able to connect to other sort of third-party analytics and connect it directly to the warehouse. All right, so now the main changes that have actually happened when it comes to the new UI is when we start looking at the the designer. So I'm going to click on this new button, and we'll start off with the analysis table. All right, so as you can see, everything looks a lot different to what you're currently used to. So what we'll see, for example, is that now we've got our dimension tree on the right-hand side. It's no longer on the left-hand side. And we can start looking at certain things, like if I want to look at a specific module, for example. So if it's something around sales, I can actually just go and select sales. If I want to look at maybe the whole model, we can do certain things like that. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to, first of all, we can look at which connection we're making to. So is this which model server we're looking at? Which is the model that we want to connect to? So these are things that we can do over there. So from there, very similar to what you're used to, we'll go, for example, and we'll do maybe something around sales. I'm going to expand my sales invoice lines, and we want to look at our invoice line amounts, and I'm going to literally drag this into my columns. And as you can see on the right, on the left hand side, I've got a number now. Now what we want to do is we want to create a month to date, maybe we want to create a quarter to date and a year to date. So we can do the very easy way of doing it is obviously is we can right click, go to time, go to period to date, and we can say month to date. And I'm just going to click on apply. So as you can see, that gives me my month to date. I'll actually just move this into the filters, just so we can save up on some space. And what we'll do now is we want to do a year to date. So do I need to right click and go and search for it? If I know what the sign is, all I'm just going to do is I can actually just go and say, I'll do quarter to date first. So I'll just going to type in QTD. And as you can see, it's got a search function actually already built into it. So I'm going to just go and click on that, and quite easily I've created now my quarter to date. We'll do another one, for example, YTD, and as you can see, it's done. So very, very simple, very, very easy to do that. For example, but we'll do another one here. Let's try on the slices instead of right click and searching for a function. We're going to just say that we want to see months to current, for example. So I'm going to say months to current. As you can see, there it is. And I'm going to say I want to see the last 6 months, for example. And what we'll do is we'll just want to bring in a hierarchy here. So we're going to look at the date hierarchy there and select my fiscal YQMD and say apply. And as you can see, within a space of seconds, we actually have now something which I've got the last 6 months to current slicer that I can actually use. So it's really been, we've actually made it very, very easy to use, easy to navigate, and yeah, just makes it a lot quicker. So I'm going to remove this. Now, in the past, I had to take these measures and I had to drag them either into the recycle bin or right click and remove. Now I can either right click and remove, the recycle bin no longer exists, or what I can actually do is I can actually just put my cursor in the front, and I can literally backspace and remove all those measures that I had in there. Now what we'll do, I'm going to bring the invoice line amount back here, and we're going to start looking at creating maybe something like around a sales report. So we'll go and say, okay, we want to see my cost of sale amount, and I'm going to drag it into my columns. I also want to look at my we want to look at the sorry, 1 second, cost of sale amount, gross profit amount. Maybe we want to do our invoiced quantity as well. And we're going to now, in fact, I'll remove this gross profit amount. We'll actually create our own calculation. And what I'm going to do there is, I just want to close this, is we will create our own calculation. So from that calculation, I'm going to right click and say custom formula. And in that custom formula, we're going to have basically my invoice line amount, and I'm going to just drag it in. Now I'm going to right click and say minus my cost of sale amount. And then from there, I just want to show this people, just get my focus going on here. Sorry about that. Okay, so from there, we can see the invoice line amount. We're going to just give this a name. This will be my gross profit. And click on apply. So as you can see, it's created that calculation for me. We'll do another one. Instead of right click and saying custom formula, I'm going to literally just press C, And as you can see, the very first thing that comes up is my custom formula. Now we'll create the GP percentage. So I'm going to give this a name, GP percentage, and that's going to be my gross profit amount. And instead of now actually typing or right clicking and getting that sign, I'm going to basically just type it. And as you can see, it'll actually show me what I want to select. So I'm going to just select that, and this will be my invoice line amount. And click on apply. So we'll now fix that. We'll fix the format of that. So I'm going to just select that, go to my table over here, and we're going to change that from a cube to a percent. So quite easily, we've now made that change. All right, so let's go and look at different ways of actually looking at this. So we'll start off with maybe looking at these. I'm going to just refresh the cube. We can either look at this by maybe saying we want to look at this as a top 10 customer. So from here, we'll just go and say customer, drag it into rows. And as you can see, that'll bring up the rows. Now we want to just change it to a top 10. So we can say set top count. Yeah, let's just do that. Sorry, 1 second. Set top and bottom top count. And we'll actually do we'll do this count where we'll actually say, let's do a parameterization on this. So parameterization, number input, and we'll say this is going to be a minimum of 1, a maximum of, let's say, 20. And the default value for this is going to be 10. And we want to order this by, I'm just going to expand the query here, my invoice line amount. This is now, all right. Just going to remove, just remove that one there. Okay, so as you can see, now I've got 10, for example. If I go and I change it to 1, it now gives me my, the top customer. And maybe if I take it to, for example, 20, and I just enter, it now sort of brings me my top 20 customers. So we're going to now, the next part of this is where we're going to now start looking at adding a chart to this table, for example. And what I'm going to do is, instead of doing this by customer, we'll actually remove the customer, and we want to look at this by our companies. For the particular purpose of this report, I want to see my gross profit percentage, excuse me, by these companies. And what we'll do now is we're going to click on the home button, and I'm going to go and switch on the chart. So I'm going to have the table and the chart basically open. And what we'll do from there is we can actually go to the actual chart. Let's change the type to a circular gauge. All right. And then what we'll do is we're going to swap the series around. So for example, this is now bringing all of these measures into this, and I want to just change this to a GP percentage and say select data. I only want to see this by my GP percentage. And then from there, we can actually go and say, let's expand that out. So as you can see now, where I'm seeing my GP percentage by all those particular companies. We can then go a little bit further, and we can do some conditional formatting, for example. So we're on the conditional formatting. I'm going to just go and select that and say on the conditional formatting, if it's less than 0.3, for example, yeah, that's fine. I want this to be in red, this to be in black. And as you can see now, we've actually got 2 companies where we can see that they're less than 30%. And that's where we can see that conditional formatting. All right. In fact, I'm going to do a little bit of different. I'm going to change the company out, and we'll actually bring in, I want to select all. So I'm going to take all on the company dimension. So for example, now I can see the whole company, and I can expand on that, where I can now see, for example, those individual companies and where it's less than 30%. All right. So from here, I'm going to actually hand over to my colleague David, just to take us through some of the other sort of charts that we can actually do. Over to you, David.
Yeah. All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I was having some connect issues with the audio. All right. Can you let me know if you see my screen and which screen you are looking?
Yes.
Can you see
your
my screen?
Yes.
You see
I can
ZAP
see.
on it?
I can see ZAP. Yes, I can see ZAP.
All right. Okay. So, well, I'm going to create a couple of charts using, and I will show you at the end one of the newest charts that we have, which is the waterfall chart. And I will show you how to use it and in which scenarios I believe it's a useful chart. So, in the same fashion as Alexi, if we want to create a new resource, we will just click here in this new plus button, and I can go here into the new analysis chart. So remember that a chart, we can create a chart by using a table, analysis, a report analysis, which is called here, analysis table, or we can directly just go and select the analysis chart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sales report, a trend probably. So here I will just select in this section in the dimension tree that I would just want to see at the sales pipelines. So I will filter out all of these sales pipelines. So I only see the sales invoice lines and the sales order lines. So from here, I will just select the normal calculations that we always use. So it's the invoice line amount. I will drag this into the bars. I will also select the cost of sales amount, and I will select also the gross margin and the gross margin percentage. So what I have selected here, I am here in this icon, which is the query icon, where we see now the dimension tree. Remember that previously this section was on the left-hand side of the screen, and so right now everything is on the right-hand side. So once we close this, now we see all of those dimensions that are related to these measures we are working with. And in this case, I will start breaking this by specific months. So I will expand the date hierarchy. I will just place the year into the slices, and I will select probably year 2021. And the months I will place them into the bars. So see how the data looks like. We cannot see the contribution margin percentage because it's a number that it's really small. So what we are going to do from here, now the chart details, remember that before everything was here in top. Here is the main chart features where we can select which kind of chart we're going to have, where are we going to basically place the legend. Here is where we can actually swap the series if we want to. So now see how the series are now. We are plotting now the months, and what we have here are the measures, or we can reverse as it was before. The small multiples that Alexi just showed you in a bit. And when we come into this, which is the chart design, the chart appearance section, is where we can basically change these individual elements. So it's just about where now things are. We reorganize them a little bit. So from here, we can basically, for example, select these two types of charts and change the type of chart that we want to do. So we are now combining probably the contribution margin. We want it to be a different type of chart, and this is basically how we combine those informations. For example, in this case, I want to show the labels. Now I am plotting those specific elements, which is the contribution margin. And in this section, which is the axis, is where we basically can change the configurations of numbering that we have here on the primary axis or in the additional axis. So as you can see, basically the configurations are similar than the ones that we used to have before. Here we can actually create a new axis, for example, for the vertical axis. So now it looks quite similar. Now, a new chart that we have is the waterfall chart. So I'm going to create that. The waterfall chart is mainly used when we want to see changes, increases and decreases, inflows and outflows over time. So for sales, it doesn't really make sense because normally sales are, unless probably we're analyzing the growth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new chart. I'm going to click here into the new report. I'm going to create here a new analysis chart. And now I will focus on inventory. So I will select from here, I will just filter inventory pipelines. And from here, we can see that in our pre-built pipelines, if I expand the inventory transactions, which is the one that has the movements, we have something which is called the issue quantity. So probably I need to activate the table as well, so you see what I'm talking about. I'll return to the query. So here we have the issue quantity. Then we have the receipt quantity. Basically, everything here is in positive, but basically the issue quantity is the quantity was out of specific warehouses, and the receipt is what we received. It can be purchases or transfers to be made between warehouses. And here is the inventory quantity, which is basically the delta between these two. So you can see here clearly the difference between these two. So this is basically the one that we want to plot. I just want to show you what is the logic behind here. So I will do something similar. I will select here the date. I will select the year first as a slicer. So here I will be focusing on the year 2021, and we will be plotting the months here. So as you can see, this is how the data looks like. We have the inbounds, the outflows, and the delta quantity. We can see that in January, we actually had a reduction in inventory. So what we are going to do now, we are going to select the inventory quantity. We can either select the whole column or we can select it from the legend. And we're going to go into the chart and we are going to click on select data. So that means that we are only going to plot this, which is the change in the inventory, right? And what we're going to do is now we are going to change the type of chart that we want to use. So to do that, I will basically deselect this, and in the chart type, I will just select the waterfall chart, which is basically this one, the column waterfall chart. You can see that we have two, the bar waterfall and the column waterfall. So in this case, I will use the column waterfall chart, and you can see now how we started the year. We started here in 0, then we had a decrease, then we start increasing the inventory all the months, almost all the months the inventory levels were increasing, but in the last month we had a decrease. So this is basically how we analyze the data. Now, see that here we have the green, again, represent increases, while the red columns represent the decreases, and we have a blue, which represents the total, but we cannot see it. In order to activate it, what we need to do, we need to go again here into the chart, and I will just select the father of the month, which in this case is the year, and I will just drag and drop it before the month. So this is basically the sum of all those transactions. It's like the net change. So now it's easier to understand the whole story of the year in terms of my inventory, right? We can see that this is how we started. At the end of the year, we had a net increase of 4.93 in the value or in the quantity of my specific inventory. Yeah, in this case is quantity. And we can see now easily in which months we had an increase and in which months we have a decrease. So yeah, this is the waterfall chart, and this is a new feature, a new type of chart we have on this new version of Data Hub.
Thank you, David. All right, so I'm just going to go back to my screen. And just a couple of the other features. So for example, if you have a look at my report, David, can you just confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. So to toggle between the design and the view. So for example, I'm in design. If I click on this little pen icon, that will collapse the dimension tree, and that essentially will put this report into a view mode, which I can now start using. So for example, I've got now more space to actually view this particular report. So I can now either go and click on save, or I can actually click on the three dots here, and I've got this save as button. So for example, if I click on save as, I can then go and select, for example, my personal folder, and I'll just call this sales by company, or I'll call it gross profit by company. And if I want to go and see that in the Resource Explorer, as you can see, it will bring it up into where my personal folder is, so I don't forget where I saved that particular report. That's quite important. The other part of this is with this Resource Explorer, I can obviously expand it. If I want to look it into a full screen mode, I can do that as well. If I want to collapse everything, I can do that. And then if I want to refresh everything, that we have that option as well available. Now, a couple of the last things, for example, is if I close, I'm just going to close this report. If I click on the if I click on the settings, you'll see that I don't have a settings page anymore where it used to open up into a different tab. So this is now all available still here. For example, if I need to go and add users, it will then open that up into a particular tab where I can now start adding those particular users. A couple of other things. If I need to do certain things, like in settings, you used to have an option that said my profile. I'm going to click on my name, and as you can see, that's where you're going to find my profile. If I go into that, this is where I can now start changing my settings for my particular user, adding a working date. Now, one of the things that you will notice here, for example, is where I could browse other folders. Now that setting has seemed to have disappeared. And how we've done that is if you go to the Resource Explorer and you go into personal, we actually have a users icon over here. And if I go like that, I will now be able to see all those different users that can access the folder. So as an admin, I'll have that access now to be able to view, and I can then copy certain reports into certain users folders. All right. So from there, we're going to do one more thing, and that's going to be around the report packs. So I'm going to go and click on the report packs. We'll go to a report pack that we've actually created. And I'm going to go and say, for example, we'll do a sales report pack for now. And I'm just going to double click on that. So very much like what you're used to, it's just a case of we've got our dimension tree sitting on the right. Should there be anything, for example, that I want to add in? So I'm going to go in and add, for example, like the VP of sales, maybe the sales manager, and we'll go and do that. So for example, I'll go to sales, and I just drag these in like I wanted them. So for example, we'll bring that, and then we can actually move it in there. So from there, if I go and I click on print preview, so I'm going to click on home, and in fact, I'll just remove these cover pages. I don't really need them. We will then click on print preview, and that's going to build up that report pack. As you quite know, it from the previous versions. Now, there is a way to toggle between the version that you know and the new UI. So once you've installed, I'm going to quickly just switch between the two. We'll just give this a second to print. So as you can see, for example, there's my sales and obviously the two dashboards that we've actually added onto them. So to toggle between the old version for now until that gets removed, just in case you battle with finding certain things, is once you're in the new UI, you've got the option to switch to the legacy UI. And let me quickly do that. This is going to refresh the page. And should you want to switch, if you're in the legacy UI and you've got version 10 loaded, you can switch to the new UI just by this option over here. And we'll just give my machine a second to refresh. And essentially, this is the new UI that you've got. So I'm going to now, that sort of concludes what I wanted to show, well, what we wanted to show you today. And I'm going to ask, are there any questions? So please feel free to post the questions into the question section, and we'll answer those questions for you. So we'll give a minute or two for those questions to come through. All right, there is a question that's come through asking us what was the link again for the documentation. So the link is docs.zapbi.com. You can also click on the help option over here, and as you can see, that will open up the helps.zapbi.com page for you. Now, this is also where a lot of the help now is going to be situated. And then if you want to have a look at what we've covered today, for example, you can just click on using ZAP Data Hub, or using Data Hub, and this essentially will take you through all that content we actually took you through today. Any other questions so far? I see there is. Let me just have a look here. So I just got my screen's a little bit small here. Let's just try. Is there any plans of building a separate design page for a mobile display for reports dashboard like Power BI? Unfortunately, I'm not too sure about that. I can't really answer that question. But from building reports in Power BI right now, you can connect your Power BI to the data warehouse using Power BI Desktop, and from there you will have access to using the Data Hub model to be able to build those Power BI dashboards. You can either connect to the warehouse or into the cube to build that. I hope that answers your question. Okay, there you go. I can now see all the questions. That's great. Okay. Is it fair to say that most of the new improvements are around dashboard design and not too much on the data warehouse automation? Tariq, thank you for that question. It is definitely fair to say that it's more around the look and feel, and more majority has been around the report designing and not so much the modeling. The only difference on the modeling is where we've given you the connection settings, but apart from that, most of the modeling is still the same as what you currently know. Okay. Are there any online help tool videos available for ZAP? We do have some online. Content which is on our website. If you go to zapbi.com and you go to videos, they are available there. We are also busy building some more content as well around help videos as the pre-sales team.
Alexi, and I think also if you go into ZAP and show the courses that are in the main page of ZAP.
Yes, thank you, David. So yeah, the other thing that David's talking about, so if you're in ZAP and you click on help and you go to these, it'll bring you to what we call the start page. Now, a lot of the stuff is covered in these. We've got some, well, not instructor-led, but self-paced learning that you can go through. So for example, one of them is welcome to the new UI, and it shows you all those new UI changes. So this is absolutely for free, and you can go and attend all these at your own time and at your own pace. I hope that answered your question, Gareth. Any other questions? All right, seems to be that seems to be most of the questions for today. I want to really thank you guys for making the time to join us today and actually watch this. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great day further. Thank you so much.